uh, very, very fine grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joins us from around the world. Welcome to the Stack Series. We're so glad you're here. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Renee.
Today we are exploring the battery landscape of 2026. And I have to be honest, just looking at the calendar, January 2026, it feels a little surreal.
It does, doesn't it? The world feels very different than it did just a few years ago.
It really does. I was actually looking back at some old tech blogs from, say, 2021, 2022, and the tone was just so different. It felt frantic.
Frantic is a good word for it. There was this palpable sense of anxiety, especially in the auto industry. They had bet the house on electrification.
The whole house.
The whole house. But the technology, the infrastructure, it wasn't quite there yet. It couldn't really support the weight of that bet. So everyone, and I mean everyone, was looking for the Holy Grail.
Right. The one battery to rule them all. I remember the checklist. Yeah. Everyone had one.
Oh, yeah.
We needed a battery that, cost practically nothing, weighed less than a feather, and could charge in, 5 seconds?
And power a semi-truck from New York to LA on a single charge.
And this was the big one. It absolutely, positively could not turn into a fireball if you got into a minor fender bender. And we wanted all of that in one single chemistry.
And that right there was the fundamental error in our thinking back then. We were searching for a silver bullet, a magic wand. But energy storage isn't magic, it's physics. It's chemistry.
It's a game of trade-offs.
It is always a game of trade-offs. You trade energy density for safety, you trade power output for longevity, you trade cost for performance. There's no free lunch.
So here we are in 2026. Did we fail? Because I'm looking at my phone and looking at my car, and I don't see a single Holy Grail battery.
We didn't fail at all. I'd say we matured. The narrative of 2026 isn't about finding one magic battery. It's about the death of that one-size-fits-all approach.
Wow.
We've entered what I like to call the specialization paradigm.
Meaning we stopped trying to force a square peg into a round hole?
Precisely. We finally stopped trying to jam the exact same lithium-ion cell into everything, from a tiny hearing aid to a massive grid-scale power plant.
It doesn't make any sense when you put it like that.
It doesn't. We realized that a small commuter car in Mumbai has completely different needs than a luxury sedan cruising on the Autobahn in Germany.
And that car has totally different needs than a solar farm out in the Arizona desert.
Exactly. It's just like the evolution of the combustion engine, really. You don't put a lawnmower engine in a Formula One car.
And you definitely don't put a jet engine in a minivan.
It's the perfect analogy. And the sheer scale of this new specialized market is, well, it's staggering.
Give me some numbers.
Okay. In 2021, the global lithium-ion market was valued at around $45 billion.
Which seemed colossal at the time.
It did. But the estimates for this year, for 2026, place us at $105 billion.
Wow. That's more than double in just 5 years.
It is. But the truly fascinating part isn't the dollar amount. It's the diversity within that number. It's no longer a monolith. It's an entire menu of technologies now.
And that's exactly what we're going to do in this deep dive. We're going to walk through that menu. We'll start by looking at how the old king, lithium-ion, has basically reinvented itself to stay on the throne.
It's had a major facelift.
Then we'll look at the high-end stuff, the premium contenders like solid state that are, finally hitting the road.
And we have to talk about the salt revolution.
I am so curious about that. Sodium-ion.
It's a fascinating story of resource economics and some brilliant chemistry.
And then we'll get into the real heavyweights, the grid batteries that literally rust on purpose before we finish up on the sci-fi frontier. Things like graphene and quantum batteries.
Which are becoming less and less sci-fi with each passing day.
Okay, so let's start with the king, the incumbent. The technology that is right now powering the very device you're probably listening to us on, lithium-ion.
You have to start there. I mean, despite all the buzz about these new chemistries, lithium-ion is still the workhorse. It's the absolute backbone of that $105 billion market.
Right.
But, and this is huge, but the lithium-ion battery in a 2026 electric vehicle is almost unrecognizable compared to what was in, say, at Tesla Model 3 back in 2020.
I keep seeing one word pop up again and again in all the industry reports: silicon. It seems like the whole industry has pivoted away from graphite and towards silicon for the anode. Why is that?
It all comes down to one word: capacity. For decades, the anode, that's the negative electrode where the lithium ions hang out when the battery's charged, was made of graphite.
Which is just carbon, right?
Just layers of carbon. And it's good, it's stable, it's reliable, it's cheap, but it has a low ceiling. Graphite can store about 372 milliamp hours per gram. That's the metric we use.
Okay, so 372, that's our benchmark.
That's the benchmark. Now look at silicon. Silicon has a theoretical capacity of about 3,579 milliamp hours per gram.
Wait, say that again?
3,579.
That's almost 10 times the energy storage.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
Nearly 10 times.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. Silicon is not a new element. We've known about it forever. If it's 10 times better, why on earth have we been messing around with graphite for 30 years? Why wasn't this the standard from day one?
Because silicon has a really, really nasty habit. It breathes.
It breathes.
It swells. When you charge a graphite anode, the little lithium ions slide very nicely between the carbon sheets. The whole structure expands by maybe 10% in volume. It's manageable.
Okay.
But when lithium ions bond with silicon atoms, the silicon expands by up to 300%.
300%. That's not breathing. That's exploding.
It's catastrophic for a rigid battery cell. I mean, imagine if your lungs expanded to 3 times their normal size every single time you took a breath. Your ribs would shatter, your tissue would tear.
Okay, yeah. I get the picture.
That is exactly what was happening inside these batteries. The silicon anode would swell up, crack, and eventually just pulverize itself into dust. The battery would be completely dead after a few dozen charges.
So the problem was never the chemistry. It was the mechanics. Just keeping the thing from destroying itself.
Precisely. And that is where the big breakthrough of 2026 really lies. We figured out how to build a cage for the silicon. We call it nanostructuring or sometimes scaffolding. Companies like Group 14, Sila Nanotechnologies, they've spent years and billions of dollars perfecting this.
So what does it look like?
Instead of using a solid chunk of silicon, they create a carbon scaffold. Think of it like a very rigid, porous sponge or a honeycomb structure. Then they deposit tiny, nano-sized particles of silicon inside the pores of that sponge.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. So when the silicon inevitably swells up.
It swells into the empty space of the sponge. The outer wall of the whole particle doesn't grow. The expansion is contained internally.
That is incredibly elegant. It's like you're giving the material room to dance without letting it knock down the walls of the ballroom.
It's a beautiful solution. And because we finally solved that mechanical failure mode, we are now seeing silicon-dominant anodes in mass-market vehicles. This isn't just a lab curiosity anymore. This is in the cars you can buy today.
And this is why the range on 2026 EVs is so much better.
It's a huge part of it. But maybe more importantly, silicon can handle the flow of ions much, much faster than graphite ever could.
Which means faster charging.
Much faster. The industry term is extreme fast charging. Because the silicon is nanostructured, there's a huge amount of surface area. The lithium ions don't have to travel deep into thick layers of graphite anymore. They can just bond to the surface of these nanoparticles almost instantly.
So in one move, with this one innovation, we've tackled both range anxiety and the it takes too long to charge problem.
In a big way, yes.
But there's another side to this evolution, isn't there? It's not just what's inside the battery, but how we actually build the thing. I've been reading a lot about something called dry battery electrode, or DBE.
Yes. This is the unsung hero of the 2026 battery revolution. It's a massive manufacturing shift.
Explain why the manufacturing method should matter to me, the consumer.
Because it's the #1 thing driving the cost down and the sustainability up. You see, the traditional way to make a battery electrode is, well, it's essentially painting.
Okay.
You mix your active materials, your lithium, cobalt, nickel, whatever, with a solvent to create this kind of thick sludge.
It's all a slurry, right?
A slurry, yes. And the solvent that's usually used is called NMP. And it is nasty stuff. It's toxic, it's expensive, it's heavily regulated, and it's difficult to handle.
So you've got this toxic sludge. Then what?
You paint this wet slurry onto a thin metal foil. And then, and this is the crazy part, you have to run that foil through these absolutely massive drying ovens. These ovens can be 100 meters long. They look like airport hangars.
And they're just baking the foil.
They're just baking it to evaporate the solvent that you just spent time and money putting in. They consume a truly massive amount of electricity.
That sounds incredibly inefficient.
Yeah.
You're adding a liquid just so you can spend millions of dollars and tons of energy removing it again.
It is horribly inefficient. It's the biggest bottleneck in every gigafactory on the planet. Dry coating, or DBE, eliminates that entire step.
Wow.
Instead of a wet slurry, you start with a dry powder mixture. You mix the active material with a special binder. Often, it's a form of fibrillated PTFE.
PPFE, that's Teflon, right? Like on a non-stick pan.
Chemically, it's the same family, but here, they aren't using it for its non-stick properties. They process the Teflon in a special way so it forms these microscopic webs, these tiny fibrils.
Like a spider web.
Exactly. And these fibrils grab onto the powder particles and hold them all together like a sticky net. You can then take that dry, bound powder and press it directly onto the foil. No liquid needed.
So no toxic solvent to buy or dispose of.
And no massive drying ovens. That means the factory can take up half the space and use a tiny fraction of the energy. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's much, much safer for the workers and the environment.
It sounds like lithium-ion has really managed to secure its throne. It's got more range, it charges faster, and it's cheaper and cleaner to make.
Yeah.
So why are we even talking about other chemistries? Why is there still so much hype around solid-state batteries?
Because even a perfected lithium-ion battery has a ceiling, and it has a fundamental floor, specifically when it comes to safety.
The liquid electrolyte.
The liquid electrolyte, it's flammable no matter how many safety features you build around it. If you puncture a lithium-ion battery hard enough, you have a problem.
A big fiery problem. We've all seen the videos.
Yeah.
Thermal runaway.
Right. Solid state is the ultimate answer to that. It's the technology that has been 5 years away for the last 20 years. But in 2026, it is finally actually here.
But is it here for everyone? Or is this like the early days of airbags where only the most expensive luxury cars get it?
It is absolutely a premium technology right now. If sodium-ion is the workhorse, solid state is the tuxedo of batteries.
Okay, I like that. Let's strip it down. What actually makes it solid state?
It's right there in the name. We replace that flammable liquid electrolyte, you can think of it as the swimming pool that the ions have to move through, with a solid material.
They're kind of solid.
It's usually a very thin sheet of a specialized ceramic, a type of glass, or a sulfide-based compound.
So if I take a nail and I punch it right through a solid-state battery, what happens?
Nothing leaks out. And more importantly, nothing catches fire. It is inherently safe.
That alone is a huge selling point.
It is. But the benefits go way beyond safety, because you don't need all that extra safety equipment, the complex cooling systems, the heavy steel casings. You can pack the battery cells much, much tighter together.
Which means higher energy density.
Significantly higher. We are seeing commercial solid-state packs hitting 350 to 400 watt-hours per kilogram. For context, the very best, most advanced lithium-ion packs are still struggling to break 300.
That's a 30 to 40% jump. In the EV world, that's massive. That's the difference between a 400-mile car and a 550-mile car.
It is. But the trade-off is manufacturing complexity. It's still incredibly difficult. You're trying to make a ceramic layer that's thinner than a human hair, but it has to be perfectly uniform over miles and miles of production. Any tiny flaw, and the battery is useless.
And ceramics are brittle. I drop a ceramic plate, it shatters, cars vibrate, they hit potholes. How does a paper-thin ceramic battery survive a pothole?
That was the billion-dollar question for a very long time. And this is where we saw a brilliant breakthrough just recently, specifically from a team of researchers at Stanford. They developed something we're calling the silver treatment.
The silver treatment? That sounds like a spa package for batteries.
It kind of is. It acts like a bridge. One of the biggest issues was that the lithium metal anode wouldn't make good even contact with the hard ceramic electrolyte. There were microscopic gaps. And as the battery charged and discharged, the lithium would push and pull unevenly, creating stress points that would eventually form tiny cracks in the ceramic.
And the cracks would grow and kill the battery.
Exactly. The researchers found that by applying a nanoscale layer of silver between the lithium and the ceramic, it essentially allowed the lithium to spread out evenly, like water on a flat surface.
So the silver acts like a buffer, a cushion.
Like a buffer or a deformable interface. It absorbs the mechanical stress and stops it from being transferred to the brittle ceramic. It was a true eureka moment that moved solid state from a lab curiosity to a commercially viable product.
So who is actually putting these in cars? Who's driving them on the road today?
Toyota is the big headline for 2026. They are finally rolling out their first solid-state EV. But again, look at the price tag. It's a premium vehicle. You're paying for that extra range and that absolute peace of mind on safety.
What about other companies?
We're seeing BMW doing a lot of prototyping, though they say mass production is probably post-2030 for them. And then you have Volkswagen, who are working very closely with QuantumScape.
QuantumScape is a name that's been in the news for a while. What are they doing that's different?
They are pursuing what they call an anode-free design.
Anode-free. How can you have a battery without a negative side?
You build the battery without a physical anode to begin with. Then the anode forms itself the very first time you charge it.
What? How?
The lithium ions move over from the cathode and they plate themselves directly onto the current collector, creating a perfect, pure lithium metal anode on the fly. It's the ultimate in energy density because you aren't wasting any space on graphite or silicon scaffolds.
That sounds incredibly high-tech and, frankly, incredibly difficult and expensive.
It is. Which brings us perfectly to the other end of the spectrum. If solid state is the tuxedo, we absolutely need to talk about the blue-collar champion, the battery for the masses.
Sodium-ion.
Yes, the salt battery.
Now, I'm fascinated by this because sodium it's just salt, right? Like the stuff you put on your food.
Chemically, it's a very close relative, and that is its absolute superpower.
The abundance of it.
The abundance, yes, but also the geopolitics. We have to talk about the lithium bottleneck. For years, most of the world's battery-grade lithium was processed in China. The mines themselves are concentrated in Australia, Chile, a few other places.
So it's a supply chain with a lot of strategic choke points.
Exactly. It's vulnerable to politics, to trade wars, to price spikes driven by speculation. But sodium is everywhere. We can get it from soda ash mines in Wyoming. We can literally get it from seawater.
So it's geographically diverse.
It's 1,000 times more abundant in the Earth's crust than lithium.
Which means it has to be cheap.
It is incredibly cheap. Right now, in 2026, we are seeing sodium-ion pack prices starting at $40 to $60 per kilowatt hour.
Okay, for comparison, what's a good lithium-ion pack cost?
A good LFP lithium iron phosphate pack is still hovering around $100 per kilowatt hour.
So it's roughly half the price. That changes the math for everything.
It changes who gets to participate in the EV revolution. This is the democratization of clean energy. We're talking about enabling affordable electric scooters in Southeast Asia, cheap city cars in Europe, accessible energy storage for homes in Africa. It completely removes the green premium.
But there's always a catch, right? If it's half the price, I assume it's half the performance. I've always heard that sodium batteries are heavy and weak.
And that was true 5 years ago. Sodium ions are physically bigger than lithium ions. They're heavier. Moving them around inside a battery is like trying to push a basketball through a pipe designed for a tennis ball.
So it's slow and it doesn't hold as much energy.
That was the old paradigm. But 2026 has brought a breakthrough that I honestly think is Nobel Prize territory.
High praise. What is it?
It's a new type of organic cathode material. A team of researchers at MIT and Princeton developed a molecule called TAQ. The full name is bis-tetraaminobenzoquinone.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
Oh.
What makes this TAQ molecule so special?
It solves the energy density problem using some very clever organic chemistry. You see, usually when a battery molecule stores an ion, it swaps one electron. It's a one-to-one relationship.
Okay, that makes sense.
TAQ uses what's called a 4-electron redox process.
So for every one molecule of this stuff, you get to store and release 4 electrons instead of just 1.
Effectively, yes. It quadruples the efficiency of the storage site at a molecular level. And because of this, we are now seeing sodium-ion energy densities hitting 355 milliamp hours per gram.
Wait, hold on a second. You said earlier that graphite, the standard for lithium-ion for decades, was 372.
Correct.
So you're telling me this cheap, abundant salt battery now has nearly the same energy capacity as standard lithium-ion technology.
It has closed the gap to an astonishing degree. But wait, there's another amazing property of this organic structure. The molecules naturally arrange themselves in layers with a very specific spacing.
How specific?
3.14 angstroms.
3.14, like pi.
It's like pi. Physics has a sense of humor sometimes. That spacing just happens to be the absolute perfect size for a sodium ion to slide in and out with almost zero friction.
What does that mean for the user? For me?
Speed. Incredible speed. In lab conditions, they have fully charged these TAQ-based cells in 90 seconds.
90 seconds. That's faster than I can pump a tank of gas.
Now, of course, that's a single cell in a perfect lab environment. But even in a commercial pack, we're looking at charging speeds that blow most lithium-ion batteries out of the water.
Okay, this sounds too good to be true.
And there's one more thing. Sodium works in the cold.
That's a huge complaint for current EV owners. Winter comes and your range just dies.
It does. The liquid electrolyte in lithium-ion batteries gets thick and sluggish when it freezes. The ions move slowly. But sodium ion is stable down to negative 30 degrees Celsius. It retains almost all of its capacity.
Okay, let me just recap this. It's dirt cheap. It's made from materials you can find anywhere on the planet. It charges almost instantly. It works in the Arctic. And it has nearly the same energy density as standard lithium. Why would anyone buy anything else?
Well, near is the key word. High-end silicon anode lithium is still better for that top-tier long-range performance. If you want an EV that can go 500 miles on a charge, you're still going to stick with lithium for now.
But for everything else.
For a city car, a delivery van, an electric rickshaw, a home backup system for your solar panels, sodium is winning. Big companies like CATL and BYD are pivoting massive GW-scale factories to this chemistry. It is, without a doubt, the people's battery.
Speaking of large-scale systems, let's pivot. We've been very focused on mobility cars, phones, scooters. But the biggest machine on Earth is the power grid.
And the grid has a completely different set of problems and priorities.
Right. A battery in your car needs to be light and compact. A grid battery can weigh 1,000,000 pounds. Nobody cares. It just sits on a concrete pad in the middle of a field.
Exactly. For the grid, the critical metric isn't watt-hours per kilogram energy density by weight. It's dollars per kilowatt hour and longevity. How cheap can you store a massive amount of energy, and for how long?
And this brings us to one of my favorite new technologies, just because of how brilliantly counterintuitive it is. Iron-air batteries.
Rust battery.
The rust battery.
Yes. For centuries, engineers have fought a war against rust. Rust is the enemy. It destroys bridges. It eats cars. It's a symbol of decay.
Right.
But companies like Form Energy looked at rust and said, wait a minute. The process of rusting oxidation releases energy. What if we could harness that and then reverse it?
So how does a battery run on rust? I'm trying to picture it.
It's surprisingly simple chemistry. The battery is essentially a huge container full of porous iron pellets.
Right.
When you want to discharge energy, say, at night when the sun isn't shining and the grid needs power, you expose that iron to oxygen from the air. You let it breathe.
And it rusts.
It rusts. That oxidation process releases electrons, which is your electricity. The battery is literally converting its own metal into rust to give you power.
So the battery is destroying itself to power the grid.
Temporarily. And then when you have excess power, in the middle of the day when the sun is blazing, you pump electricity back into the rust. That forces the oxygen out and turns the iron oxide back into metallic iron.
It's a reversible rust cycle.
It's a completely reversible rust cycle. And because iron and air are, well, dirt cheap, the cost is targeted at around $5 per kilowatt hour of storage.
Okay, just for perspective again, you said lithium-ion is around 100, sodium-ion is maybe 50, and iron-air is 5.
It is essentially free storage compared to the alternatives.
But there has to be a catch.
The catch is efficiency. It's not great. You lose about 40 to 50% of the energy in that round trip from electricity to rust and back to electricity.
Ouch. A 50% loss is a lot.
It is. But if you are storing excess wind energy at 2 a.m. that would otherwise be completely thrown away because nobody needs it, you don't care about efficiency, you care that you can store that otherwise wasted energy for 100 hours.
100 hours.
That's the magic number. A lithium-ion grid battery is good for maybe 4 hours of storage, maybe 6 if you push it. Iron-air is designed for multi-day storage. It's for when a big storm front moves in and the wind stops blowing for 3 or 4 days straight. It's the marathon runner of the grid.
So iron-air is the marathon runner. It handles the long, slow burn. But what about the sprints? I know the grid is a very fragile system. If a big power plant suddenly trips offline, the frequency of the entire grid can drop instantly. You need a huge burst of power in milliseconds, not hours.
And iron-air absolutely cannot do that. It's far too slow. For that kind of instant response, we turn from chemistry to pure physics, SMES.
Superconducting magnetic energy storage.
This is the sprinter. It stores energy not in chemicals, but in a magnetic field.
How does that work?
You take a huge coil of wire superconducting wire, and you cool it down to cryogenic temperatures.
We're talking liquid nitrogen. Near absolute zero type stuff.
Close to it. At that temperature, electrical resistance completely disappears. It drops to zero. So you pump a DC current into this coil and it just spins. The current flows forever in a loop with zero loss, and its energy is trapped in the powerful magnetic field it creates.
It sounds like a perpetual motion machine.
In an ideal system, it basically is. The energy just stays there until you need it. The moment the grid wobbles, maybe a big cloud passes over a massive solar farm and the voltage dips for a second, that magnetic field can release its stored energy in less than 100 milliseconds.
Boom. Instant power.
Instantaneous. It stabilizes the grid before the lights in your house even have a chance to flicker. Now, it's expensive because of all the cooling required, but it's the perfect partner to the slow, cheap, long-duration iron-air battery.
So it's a team sport for the grid now. You have sprinters and marathon runners working together.
Exactly. The right tool for the right job.
Let's move to the outer rim of our battery menu, the real niche players. The technologies that are designed to solve very specific, very hard problems. You mentioned earlier that solid state is good for things like aviation, but is there something even better on the horizon?
For anything that flies, the absolute dream is lithium-sulfur. Why sulfur? One reason: weight, or rather the lack of it. Sulfur is incredibly light. The theoretical energy density of a lithium-sulfur battery is 2,600 watt-hours per kilogram.
Okay, remind me again what a good lithium-ion battery is.
Around 300.
So we're talking nearly 9 times the energy for the same amount of weight.
Yes, which is why Airbus, Boeing, and every drone and eVTOL manufacturer on the planet is obsessed with it. If you want an electric plane to cross an ocean or a flying taxi to carry 4 passengers across a city, you need the kind of energy density that only lithium-sulfur can provide.
But I feel like I've been hearing about sulfur batteries for years. And I remember the big problem is that they had a ridiculously short life expectancy. Like, they died after 10 charges or something.
They did. The problem was called the polysulfide shuttle effect.
That sounds like a bad sci-fi movie title.
It was a chemical tragedy playing out inside the battery. When the sulfur reacts with lithium, it forms these intermediate compounds called polysulfides. These things have a nasty habit of dissolving into the liquid electrolyte.
They're not supposed to do that.
No, they're supposed to stay put, but they would shuttle across the battery to the anode and react there, creating this mossy, insulating layer that would just clog everything up.
So it basically suffocates the battery from the inside out.
Exactly. But in just the last 2 years, we've essentially solved it. Researchers started using something called metal organic frameworks, or MOFs.
We're back to cages and frameworks again.
We are. Think of MOFs as programmable molecular scale cages. They are complex structures designed with pores that are exactly the right size and have the right chemical properties to trap a sulfur molecule. They hold the sulfur in place physically and chemically so it can't dissolve and shuttle over to destroy the anode.
So you lock the sulfur in a tiny jail so it can do its job without wandering off and causing trouble.
That's a perfect way to put it. And piece of that, suddenly we have lithium-sulfur batteries that can last for 500 cycles. That's more than enough for a commercial drone fleet or an eVTOL air taxi service.
That really does open up the skies. Now, I have to ask about the ultimate material of the future. Graphene.
Yeah.
We have been promised graphene everything for 20 years. Graphene batteries especially. Is it still just vaporware?
It was vaporware for a very long time. Now it's finally becoming hardware. Graphene, as you know, is just a sheet of carbon that's only 1 atom thick, arranged in a perfect honeycomb lattice. It is 200 times stronger than steel and a phenomenal conductor of electricity.
So what are we doing with it in batteries?
We're seeing the rise of graphene aluminum-ion batteries. There's a big collaboration between a company called GMG and the mining giant Rio Tinto on this. The chemistry uses no lithium, no copper, no cobalt, no nickel.
Another huge geopolitical win then.
A massive win for supply chain stability. But the benefit for you, the user, is speed. Graphene conducts electricity and dissipates heat so incredibly well that these batteries can be charged up to 60 times faster than a standard lithium-ion cell.
60 times faster.
We are talking about the potential for a full EV charge in under 5 minutes. Realistically, you're limited only by how fast the grid can pump the power into the car.
That makes the charging station experience identical to a gas station. Okay. You stop, you plug in, you run inside to grab a snack, and by the time you're back, you're done.
Precisely, and they last. They're demonstrating cycle lives of over 10,000 cycles. You could put this battery in a car, drive it for 20 years, scrap the car, and then take the battery out and put it in your next car.
That's true circularity. Real sustainability.
It is.
Okay, we have to go to the very edge of physics now. Quantum batteries? This sounds like something straight out of Star Trek script. Captain, the quantum battery is draining? Is this actually a real thing?
It is moving from the realm of theoretical physics to early-stage proof of concept. And the principles behind it are truly mind-bending.
So how does a quantum battery actually differ from a chemical battery like we've been talking about?
It stores energy in quantum states of molecules, and it relies on two very strange quantum effects: superabsorption and entanglement.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack entanglement for us non-physicists.
Of course. Imagine a choir. In a normal battery, a classical battery charging, it is like every singer starting to sing their own song at their own pace. To charge the whole battery, you have to charge each cell individually. You add more singers or more cells, and it just takes longer. It's a linear process.
Right. Makes sense.
In a quantum battery, the molecules used for storage are entangled. They act as a single collective entity. It's like the entire choir singing one perfect note in absolute instantaneous unison. And the weird part of the physics is that the more molecules you have entangled, the faster they can all absorb energy together.
So you're telling me a bigger battery charges faster than a small one?
Yes, that's the paradox of superabsorption. A quantum car battery would charge much, much faster than a quantum phone battery.
That completely breaks my brain a little bit.
It should. It's totally counterintuitive. But the big problem for years was that these quantum states are incredibly fragile. They collapse if you look at them wrong. Literally. Any environmental noise or vibration destroys the entanglement.
So how do you keep the choir singing in unison when there's a rock concert happening next door?
That was the big breakthrough from researchers at RMIT and CSIRO in Australia this past year. They figured out how to use something called molecular triplet states to shield the stored energy.
A shield?
Think of it as noise-canceling headphones for the molecules. It protects the fragile quantum state from the chaotic outside world. Using this method, they managed to extend the energy retention time from nanoseconds, which is completely useless, to microseconds.
Microseconds still sounds incredibly short.
It is. You can't run a phone on it yet. But it represents a 1,000-fold increase in stability. It's the proof of concept that shows the math holds up in the physical world. We are still looking at a decade-long horizon here. But the ultimate promise is a phone that charges in a single second and holds that charge for a week.
It's the ultimate endgame for energy storage.
It really is.
So we've covered the chemistry, the materials, the physics, and the manufacturing. But we live in a digital world now. There's another layer on top of all of this, isn't there? The smart layer.
This is where AI and advanced material science come together, and it's leading to some incredible things, like batteries that can heal themselves.
Heal themselves, like Wolverine from the X-Men.
A bit like skin, actually. We talked about how silicon anodes can crack from swelling. Well, what if, when a microcrack forms, the battery material could just flow into the gap and repair it autonomously?
How is that possible?
Researchers are embedding liquid metals or using special polymers that have dynamic hydrogen bonds. These are weak chemical bonds that can break and reform very easily. So if an electrode cracks, the polymer chains just slide over and click back together within minutes, restoring the electrical connection.
So the battery's maintenance becomes completely autonomous.
Yes. It dramatically extends the useful life of the pack. And then you have the purely digital side, the battery passport.
I've heard this term coming out of the EU regulations.
It's mandatory now for new batteries sold there. Every battery gets a digital twin from birth, a file that tracks where its minerals were mined, the carbon footprint of the factory that built it, every single charge and discharge cycle it has ever been through.
So when I go to buy a used EV in a few years, I'll know exactly what I'm getting. No more guesswork about the battery's health.
Exactly. The guesswork is gone. And this data feeds into the battery management systems, the BMS, which are now run by AI. They use what are called LSTM networks, long short-term memory neural networks.
A type of AI that's good at seeing patterns over time.
Precisely. It learns your specific behavior. It knows you drive to work at 8 a.m. and park in the hot sun. It knows you like to fast charge on Fridays on your way out of town. It then adjusts the thermal management and the charging curve in real time to minimize degradation. It can even predict a potential thermal runaway event weeks before it could ever happen and warn you to get the vehicle serviced.
So the car will literally say, hey, there's a 1% chance I'm going to catch fire next Tuesday. You should probably take me to the shop.
Essentially, yes. It prevents the catastrophe before it starts.
This has been exhaustive. And I feel exhausted, but in a really good way. We've gone from the chemistry of rust all the way to quantum mechanics. So Let's try to bring it all home. What is the single biggest takeaway for someone listening to this deep dive?
The takeaway is that we have successfully diversified our energy storage portfolio. We are no longer reliant on one element, one country, or one chemistry.
So if I'm a consumer in 2026, what does my choice look like?
If you want a cheap, reliable city car that you'll own for 10 years, you buy one with a sodium-ion battery. If you're a performance enthusiast who wants a 500-mile range and lightning-fast charging, you buy a premium EV with a solid-state or high-silicon lithium-ion pack. If you're a utility company, you buy Iron Air for your long-duration needs and SMES for your instant response.
The toolbox is finally full.
It is, and that makes the entire energy transition more resilient and more robust.
I want to end on a thought that you mentioned to me before we started, a provocative thought about where all of this is ultimately heading.
Yes, we still tend to think of batteries as these discrete components, these cans of energy that we shove into a device. But as materials like graphene and solid-state electrolytes mature, that line starts to blur.
How so?
We are moving toward the era of structural batteries. Imagine the battery isn't a separate block inside the car's chassis. Imagine the battery is the chassis.
The actual metal frame of the car is what stores the energy.
Yes. Or the casing of your phone is the battery. The wings of the airplane are the battery. The walls of your house are the battery.
So energy storage becomes completely invisible.
Invisible and ubiquitous. When you combine that with near instantaneous charging from things like graphene or quantum tech, the entire concept of battery life or charging time it fades away. We don't worry about how much air is in the room. We just breathe. Energy becomes like that, just there when you need it.
That is a future I cannot wait to live in. Before we wrap up, we would like to thank all our partners, sponsors, and scholars who made this podcast and the research possible. We're truly grateful for your support.
And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow Stack Studios for more informative content released every day.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let the search for wisdom guide you forward. Have a great day.